So the other day a viewer sent me this super wild standard turbo fog deck that's looking to win with max speed, even though it doesn't really have any creatures to get to max speed. It is a wild deck and it looks super cool. So today we're going to take it out for a spin and see if turbo fog can actually work in standard. Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have a sweet one today. We are heading to Standard to try some Turbo Fog, one of my all-time favorite archetypes, and this is actually a viewer-submitted deck. It comes to us from Casey Has the Candy, and when I saw this deck, I knew we had to try it, in part because, like I said, I love Turbo Fog. It's one of my favorite miserable archetypes in the history of Magic, and for another thing, the actual list looks pretty interesting, and it's got some really cunning deck building going on to try to make it work. So let's talk about this Turbo Fog deck, what it's trying to do, jump into some games, and see if Turbo Fog can actually work in Standard. So the theory of Turbo Fog is actually pretty simple. What we want to do is kind of let our opponent build their board and do their game plan, but whenever they try to damage us, we just fizzle that damage, and then eventually, in the late game, we're going to mill our opponent out to actually win the game. So first off, we have our fogs. Our one real fog, like a traditional fog, is Eerie Interference. For 3 mana, just prevents all damage that would be dealt to us and creatures we control this turn by creatures. So our opponent swings with a huge board, we just Eerie Interference, we take 0 damage, and one of the beautiful things about fogs is it doesn't matter how big our opponent's board is. Like, they can have 5 million power, and Eerie Interference still gonna stop all of it. So the fog meta may be real in Standard, but we got more than just that. So we have Eerie Interference as a literal fog. We have Stall for Time. It's kind of a half fog. It can tap down 2 creatures, put stun counters on them. We have Etherize, which is like a super fog. Not only does it stop all the damage, but it's going to bounce all the creatures back to our opponent's hand. So a commander crit come to Standard. And then one of my favorite cards in the deck, Time Stop. It's really an extra turn spell, but it can also be a fog if we cast it during combat. But a lot of times, since it just ends the turn, we want to cast it like on our opponent's upkeep, so they skip their entire turn, or with something on the stack, so it goes to exile and we counter it. So those are our fogs. We get all these cards that just stop our opponent from dealing combat damage to us. We also have a couple of resets, a couple of Day of Judgments, a Sunfall. So if our opponent's board gets too big, one of the challenges of playing Turbo Fog is fogs don't impact the board, right? We're spending a card, but we're not getting any cards off the battlefield. So if we run out of fogs, our opponent's going to have this massive board, and we die in just a single attack. So having a couple of Wraths to reset everything is just a way to buy us a little more time to get our fog plan set up. So that's kind of the fog plan of the deck. We also have Union of the Third Path to gain some life, draw a card, Deduce to draw some cards. Stormchaser's Talent, hilarious in this deck. The main purpose of Stormchaser's Talent is actually using level 2 to get back our fogs. So once we get up to 7 mana, we can like activate the Stormchaser's Talent, get back an Eerie Interference, and still have the mana left to cast the Eerie Interference during our opponent's turn. So these are actually like just more fogs in our deck. And then when it comes time to actually winning the game, we have one plan that's not especially realistic, and then one plan that is hopefully more realistic. So the not especially realistic plan is we have a Felden's Cane, which we can play for 1 mana, tap and exile it, and shuffle our graveyard into our library. So if we just go like all the way through our deck, we can shuffle our graveyard back in, hopefully our opponent mills out first. But the real plan of this deck is Aether Syphon. This is the key card. So this is a 3 mana Start Your Engines artifact. You pay 2 tap to draw a card. More importantly, once you get to max speed, whenever we draw a card, each opponent mills 2 cards. So how we plan on winning the game with this deck is playing Aether Syphon, which we already kind of want because it draws us cards, and that's really important to make sure we keep drawing our fogs so we don't die to that one big attack from our opponent. But once we get to max speed, we just kill our opponent by drawing cards with our Syphon, on our draw step, with our Deduce, with our 3 steps ahead, with our Union of the Third Path. The weird thing is though, how do we actually get to max speed in this deck? Because we don't really have creatures. I guess we have one Scrawling Crawler, which does ping our opponent. Good way to turn on max speed if it lives. I don't expect it to live much. I guess Stormchaser's Talent makes a token which you can turn on max speed, but the real plan comes from the mana base. So our plan for turning on Aether Syphon is Crimelands. So what we really want to do is play an Aether Syphon, and then eventually we're going to draw Lonely Arrayo, a Crimeland. When we play it, it pings our opponent for 1, that'll increase our speed, and then eventually we'll find another one that'll increase our speed, and we also have 3 Aired Archways in our deck, specifically so we can pick back up our Lonely Arrayos and reuse them to increase our speed again. So our plan for getting to max speed It's not quick. We are getting to max speed incredibly slowly. Our 40 time is not good in this deck, but eventually on like turn 20 or something, we should turn it on and then hopefully just mill our opponent out over the course of a couple turns. So that is our Turbo Fog deck. Sideboard, I guess, mostly straightforward, eliminate the impossible, kind of another fog, some removal, a Planeswalker, Authority of the Console is helpful against mono red, keeping their hasty stuff from hitting us. So anyway, that's Turbo Fog. That's our deck for today. So let's jump into some games and see if the fog met is real. Can Turbo Fog work in Standard? Let's find out. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you all enjoy it, and I'll be back in a bit for the wrap up. Need some Magic cards? Well, you can snag them from our sponsor, Card Kingdom, over at cardkingdom.com/mtggoldfish. Want to help out the channel? Well, you can snag these super sweet new dice, playmats, tokens, and more over at mtggoldfishmerch.com. It is Turbo Fog time. We are trying out this viewer submitted from Casey Has the Candy Turbo Fog deck, which looks hilarious. This hand looks pretty good. I mean, we got an Aetherize. We are playing Standard, by the way, with Aetherize. If no one in Commander expects Aetherize, no one in Standard is going to expect to get Aetherized. Opponent, Lush Portico. Very curious to see if this deck actually works. Turbo Fog is such a cool archetype. One of my favorite archetypes. I love me some Turbo Fog. Oh, do we have to play the Crime Land? Oh. So the theory of this deck, it's so actually very, very cunning, I will say. We need to get to max speed for this Aether Syphon. The problem is we don't really have creatures for the most part. I guess we have an Otter at the moment, but our way of getting max speed is primarily with these crime lands. So playing the crime land early is kind of painful. Well, let's get down a Syphon, get our speed going. Maybe we can get in an Otter hit. That would be sweet. If we can get up to speed 2, I mean, this is our game plan for winning. The way we win is by milling our opponent out eventually, by turning Aether Syphon into a weird Teferi's tutelage. About it. All right. Get lost the token to keep us from gaining speed. But all that to say, playing a pain land early kind of hurts, or a crime land, because we really want to be triggering our Siphons with it. Opponent, Overlord time. Well, there's a Day of Judgment. I guess we just main phase Union to draw a card and gain some life, and then Archway, pick up the desert. That's also, this mana piece is so unique. I don't know if it's like next level brilliant, or it's going to end up being clunky, but we're going to see. But the idea is the bounce land picks up the crime land to increase our speed to eventually turn on the Aether Syphon. Opponent, Overlord of the Flood Pits. Gonna do a little drawing and a little discarding. There's a few cards that looking at the deck list, I was like, I really want to add this. Opponent, Leyline Binding, to get, the Syphon. There's a few cards I was thinking that, just looking at the list, it would be sweet to add. But I really wanted to try just the unaltered viewer deck first. And then we'll see how it goes. Maybe we update partway through and add some things. Well, yeah, I mean, so Storm Chaser's Talent, level up. Storm Chaser's Talent's really funny. The main reason it's in our deck is this mode right here, which is get a Fog back from the graveyard. Although we're actually going to get the Union here to draw another card, because we don't need a Fog at the moment. But that is the purpose of the Storm Chaser's Talent, is to get back our Fogs. And I guess actually it can be a backup win con. Maybe we try to level it all the way up. Kind of risky against Leyline. Oh boy. All right, Zur. Come on, fire up that binding. Fire up that binding. Get that value. Yeah, they're going to go for the Overlord. All right. I mean, we have a Wrath, so this is fine. Opponent gets the ramp, hits us back to 20. The good news is... Ooh, another Storm Chaser's Talent. Day of Judgment. Get rid of the Zur. Play a land. Play a Storm Chaser's Talent, which we can use to get something else back again in the future. And we get to crack our map. Boy, I think we mill it. I think we'd really rather hit more card draw, probably. So one of the cards I really want to add to the deck is Jace. I feel like Jace... Oh, no. Maelstrom Pulse. That's brutal. All right. Well, there goes both our Storm Chasers talents. Ooh, can we actually do Aether? Ooh, there's a Deduce. That kind of worked. Well, see if we can get in. Get up to speed 3. I mean, our next goal here is to actually get to max speed. Well, let's crack the map. And, all right, there's an island. Sure. Let's play the island and I guess just pass the turn. So we can Deduce, we can Union. Opponent, taking down their Overlord. Well, let's draw with Deduce, make a clue. But I feel like Jace is just kind of like a free win card against these decks. And since our main game plan is milling out, it speeds up like the kill, which I think could be relevant. And it's another card draw effect, which you also want in a Turbo Fog deck. The problem is with Turbo Fog, you're going down a card to not impact the board, right? So you need to keep drawing cards or else eventually you're going to run out. Opponent, Leyline Binding. Boy, we have made our opponent spend premium removal on some not great targets. But our opponent really does not want us to get to max speed. All right, Overlord becomes a thing. We draw another Fog. Well, let's Union of the Third Path. Gain some life, draw a card. Ooh, time stop. 1, 2, or 1 short. Ooh, or 1 short. 1 short from time stopping. Let's just get on the Syphon. They shouldn't have counters in the main, I wouldn't think. Usually domain does not. They might in the sideboard a couple, but do we actually, maybe we just pass. So if we play the Syphon, yeah, let's play the Syphon. We can draw with the Syphon, which is nice. Save our clue. So it's another way we can get more card draw. We really would like to get to max speed, though. We need one more. We need a crime land or a bounce land. We need some way. Well, at least our opponent doesn't have a Up the Beanstalk going, as they cancel these Leyline Bindings to kill all of our Syphons. Well, draw a card. The shields are down, Domain Overlords. Ooh, oh boy. At some point, these time stops are going to be spicy. That's another, like, apart from just being Turbo Fog, which is already an archetype I really like, the other reason I'm intrigued by this deck is Time Stop's a brutal card if you make it work. It is 6 mana, but it's essentially an extra turn spell, and being an instant means you can sometimes get some big blowouts. Opponent hits us all the way down to 22. You're doing it, Overlords. You're doing it. We haven't even started fogging yet. We've just gained so much life with that Union. The question is, how are we going to use these time stops? So we can just upkeep them and turn it into an extra turn spell. We can try to wait until our opponent casts something and get, like, more value out of it. Well, let's crack the clue. Yeah, I mean, I guess they can attack. Do we even care? Do we just let this go? We're going to try to mill him out anyway. Maybe our opponent drawing cards is not the end of the world for us. Maybe it's actually good. Opponent gets in. I mean, we've gained enough life that we're still at 17 after taking the hit, which is fine. Well, all right, untap. Union of the Third Path. All right, let's gain a little life. Union's been really good this. There's the bounce land. There's the bounce land. 1, 2, 3. Oh, we should have manually tapped. That's awkward. Well, let's tap the... Play the Storm Chaser's talent. We should have tapped the Desert just in case we drew the bounce land. Because now we're actually 1 short of time stopping, although that should be fine. The upside is this gets us to max speed next turn. And then if we can find another Syphon, then things become very good. Found our land. Gets in with the Overlord. Sure. I mean, I think we're kind of just fine with taking the beats here. Opponent discards a forest. And I mean, we can't really interact with anything this turn, so what's the worst thing I can do? White Overlord? That's the thing, like, their big bombs are stuff that still gets got by our Fogs and our Aetherizes, so kind of safe, I think. Like, worst case was probably Zerg. Wow, opponent really is scared. I mean, I guess people are really scared of Storm Chaser's talents because of other decks, although they're not really essential to our plan in our deck. Well, let's get to max speed. We did it. We have successfully gotten to max speed with our crime lands, little by little. It does take a while. Now let's crack a map. Now that we're at max speed, I imagine they're not as interested in Otter Slaughter. Crack a map. And please not a... Well, we got all 3 time stops. At some point, we're going to have to start using these. We're also to the discard to hand size part of the game, which is a little awkward. Well, Otter ya. Technically, we are winning the damage race. We have taken a lot of Overlord attacks, and somehow we are still winning the damage race. Well, let's discard a Plains. This might be a time stop turn. Come on, cast something big. What we really want is our opponent just to slam something big pre-combat, and we can, like, counter it with the time stop, but it seems like maybe they're just going to attack. We can Aetherize, but I don't really see the point in Aetherizing just this Overlord of the Flood Pits. Yeah, let's just time stop. Fizzle the card draw. There's even actually, like, an argument for letting them draw here, as weird as that sounds. We have a lot of Fogs in hand. We have a time stop, 2 time stops, 2 Fogs, 2 Aetherizes. Maybe we should be letting our opponent draw and then time stopping just to mill them out faster. What a weird world we live in. Well, let's play the land. Pass the turn. Well, there's Up the Beanstalk. Yeah, let's time stop that, I think. Again, I'm still not 100% sure if it's better to to let them draw all the cards or to counter the card draw. I am afraid that they could overwhelm us, though. Like, we don't have the card advantage engine at the moment. Let's get in. If our opponent blocks, we can actually fog, kill the Overlord. All right, opponent takes it. One of the weird quirks of our fog, our eerie interference, is our creatures still get to deal damage. Are we going to spend our last time stop? I think so. No one expects the third time stop. Well, we're down to 4 fogs now. Man, we need a... Well, there's another crime land. Go, go, Otter, go. Watch us win with this Otter somehow. The mighty, mighty Otter. Well, crime ya. All the way down to 11. We really just need a... We need a Aether Syphon. That would be the... That would be the best. Opponent. Well, this one's resolving. Up the beanstalk. Draw a card. Opponent didn't have one for most of the game, but now they're finding all the up the beanstalks. Opponent. Analyze the pollen, eh? Well, probably snagging what? White Overlord? The white one adds the most power. Okay, gonna go green. Sure. This is actually gonna be very interesting now. Thankfully, we're at 20. That is the good news. Unfortunately, we got no card advantage engine. That's the bad news. Opponent gets in with Overlord. Well, let's bounce it. If our opponent wants to replay it, they can't replay it in creature mode, which is nice. Opponent still gets to draw. Do a little discarding. Yeah, Sunfall, probably not great this matchup. All right, they have a land. Yeah, I guess they can actually. Wow, they're not even going to replay it. They could have replayed it as a creature. What do they have at instant speed? Our opponent feels the need to leyline binding the Otter. Well, let's play the Rayo. Crime ya down to 10. Our opponent was actually getting afraid that the Otter might go all the way. Oh, we need some card draw. We need some card draw. See, these are the scenarios. One's got, what, 23 cards in their deck or something? These are the scenarios where having Jace in our deck would be, oh boy, are we going to get to Etherize 5 Beast tokens? See, we're just not really like, all right, now they're up the beanstalk. Sweet. 22 cards. 21 cards. Yeah, see, Jace would be so good. Jace would be so good here. It would pretty much just win us the game if we had added Jace at any point. Another Etherize. All right, go. I mean, with our opponent having 2 up the beanstalks, though, maybe they just draw themselves to death. Can we just fog long enough? Even we haven't milled any cards this game, right? We haven't had a Syphon since we had to max speed. Well, Etherize you. Just like we're playing some Commander. Pick 'em up, pick 'em up. About it. Overlord of the Flood Pits. Draws 2 cards. And then has to draw 2 more cards. I mean, the thing is, if we can fog and bounce enough, 16, eventually they're going to have to stop playing stuff because they're up the beanstalks, or at least expensive stuff, or else they risk just drawing their entire deck as we fog them, which is beautiful. Yes, stall for time. Okay. That is essentially another fog, and it kind of draws us a card. As long as they don't have Zur. Zur is kind of frightening. Well, it's not... Okay, there's a Zur. So we can still fog and Etherize through the Zur. If we want to stall for time, though, we got to do it now. I kind of want to cycle it at least. Yeah, let's... Yeah, all right, whatever. We'll wait. We'll wait. What our opponent might need to do, as weird as this sounds, is they might need to turn on the up the beanstalks with the Zur in hopes that we Etherize them so they don't mill themselves out. Opponent, gonna go with a Leyline Binding. That also makes sense. All those bad Leyline Bindings that weren't doing much, suddenly looking a little bit better now that they turn into 6/6s. Opponent, gotta draw a couple cards. The clock is on. 13 cards in the deck. Well, fog ya. An opponent sees the writing on the wall, cannot beat the fogs, and scoops it up. And that actually went spectacularly. We can bring in the Get Loss. Good at dealing with enchantments. Maybe the Kaido, although the Kaido's going to die to a Leyline Binding. Go down the Felden's Cane. I don't think we're going to need that. I feel like stall for time's pretty bad against Zur and run it like that. On to game 2. Well, let's see if we can fog him out. Fog him out again. Fog him out. All right, opponent, on the play. Oh, wait. Oh, this is like the egg. You know what? This hand looks horrible. But this actually just might be an aggro hand for this deck. I think we try this. I think there's a world, because our opponent just saw us as this Turbo Fog deck with, like, no creatures. They probably sideboarded out all their cheap removal, and we might just be able to go, all right, there's another land. That is huge. We might be able to just triple Storm Chaser's talent, aggro beat you down. That's our game plan here. The one land Turbo Fog keep. Because we're the aggro deck now. Well, play the land, and I mean, we got a game plan. We're sticking to it, Storm Chaser's talent. The bad news is if this plan falls apart somehow, I don't know how we rebuild realistically, but because the deck really doesn't want to miss land drops, but otter ya, prowess ya, hit ya, 17. We would like to just keep drawing lands. That would be sweet. Opponent land and Overlord of the Flood Pits. Okay. Not a body immediately. They get to draw some cards. Does not stop the Otter Onslaught though. Okay, that's a land that's huge. Well, in that case, I think we just play the Syphon. Trigger Prowess a few times. Wait, is there a chance this works? Opponent goes to... I mean, we had to try it because it's funny, but... Is this actually going to be a realistic way to win? It might actually happen. Opponent. Ooh. All right, Overlord of the Mistmoors. That's a good one because it gives our opponent blockers. Boo. Oh, we drew a land though. Okay, so we get to deduce. Actually, play the land. Let's just attack first. See what our opponent does. Because what we can do is deduce and get lost. Trigger Prowess. Yeah, this should work. So deduce. Draw a card, trigger Prowess. Yeah, Sunfall. Not great with the aggro plan. And then I guess we just blow up the Overlord of the Mistmoor. Trigger Prowess. So our opponent goes to 8. Loses their tokens. Our speed goes to 3. We need a way to trigger Prowess. We don't have a way to trigger Prowess next turn. Opponent Overlord. Okay. Green Overlord ramps and passes. Time stop. Not the best. Well, let's... Oh, do we just draw? We could swing with Are we still trying to win with aggro? We can swing with everything just to turn on max speed. Yeah, I think we're still trying to win with damage here. Oh, wow. That's actually the perfect draw. It is a land that also crimes you, which gets us to max speed. So now our siphons are on. And yeah, I mean, Milia. Opponent's an angry donut. Oh, all right, opponent. Can you beat the otters? Can you beat the fogs? Opponent, hey, oh no. Our Syphon. Is there any way we can fizzle it with time stop? That would be sweet. Found it. Cracking the map. Wow, gonna crack on the Haywire might be interesting. I guess they're not sacking it right away then. Oh, okay, so the damage plan might be off the table. We can just Sunfall, and then in response, we're gonna blow up our Syphon. But then we get this big incubate. I think we go for it. Well, the otters didn't quite get all the way, but they got our opponent oddly low on life. Found it. Gonna blow up the Syphon. Thankfully, we also have another Syphon in hand, which is kind of huge. And we get a 5/5 incubate, which our opponent's at 9. That's a 2-turn clock. Opponent land and passing. Oh boy, this is so boring, but incubate. The counter is also good. We might actually get the damage one after all. Get it hit you, opponent. Down to 4. Pass the turn. Opponent needs something. Up the beanstalk. Sure, I think we want to counter what they draw off the leyline binding. Oh, do we have to? Yeah, I mean, we got to just go for the win, right? Let's counter it. If it wasn't for the fact that this incubate's lethal, we would definitely just let it resolve, but... All right, opponent negates back. So much for the damage plan. The good news is we got another Syphon and even more crimelands. Well, Syphon and Crimea down to 3. We're killing our opponent on it. Multiple axes at the moment. Oh, did... Opponent's got 47 cards in their deck. I think they just put their entire sideboard in. I think our opponent just put all the sideboard in and ran it. Overlord of the Mistmoors. That's a good one. Thankfully, we have... Man, do we go for... Milia. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We can get stuff back with the talents. Although it probably makes the most sense just to do some time stopping, just make you skip your turn. Time stop. Just do it upkeep, so it's actually literally just an extra turn spell. Untap land. Okay, that's pretty good. So now we can siphon Milia and still time stop on your upkeep. One thing to keep in mind with time stop, it does exile itself. That's part of the card. So it does exile, so we can get that back with the talents. Well, Milia and siphon and deduce. Draw. Oh my god, that's fog. Okay, good draw. Milia. Opponent's down to 32. Once we get going, the deck actually mills quite a few cards. Opponent was at 47 like 2 turn cycles ago. Now they're down to 32. We probably need, what, 2 or 3 turns of milling to actually get them to 0. Found a hedge maze. Combat. Attacks. I think we just take this attack. We'll take the 10. Not dead yet. Plus now we can activate all of our siphons and mill a bunch more. I don't think we can quite win this turn unless we draw more card draw. So we mill for 4, draw a card. And siphon, mill for 4. All right, Union of the Third Pass, not bad. Well, not great. Oh, deduce. Wait, does this actually let us... There's no way we're milling. 18. Wait, do we actually do it? 17, 16, 15, 14. Do we actually just win? Oh my god. Aether Syphon. Okay. Turbo Fog. Opponent. Oh wait, are we... We're so close. We're a mana short of winning right now. That's fine. We just fog. We'll just upkeep fog and win next turn. Yeah, we needed one more activation of a clue. We were 1 mana short. But it really should, unless they can kill both of the siphons here. Okay, take that back. Hopefully we're still okay. They don't have many cards in their deck, but somehow that Maelstrom Pulse does answer both of the siphons there. So opponent's got 5 cards in their deck. Well, I mean, I guess we level up. I think we're still good because we can just keep leveling up to get back sweepers and removals. Do we even Sunfall? Yeah, let's Sunfall. I don't think they have a counter. So Wrath with the Sunfall, play the land. Does our opponent even have enough resources left in their deck to win the game? 4 cards. If they cast big things, I got to draw with the beans, which is bad for them. Yeah, let's crack a clue, draw a card. And, well, I think we have done it. I think we've actually done it. Oh, strip mine ya? Just because. What are the odds that they have a land left? Good game to you, opponent, and Turbo Fog. It might not have been quick and easy, but yes, that was the 1 land 1 keep aggro draw Turbo Fog win. And in the end, the damage gets the job. We killed him with mill and damage essentially. Well, Turbo Fog. Sweet. We'll see how this one goes. We still might oh, yeah, okay, we'll try this. Hopefully our opponent's not too aggro. The lack of white mana is a little... Oh, no. Okay. Well, Leyline of Resonance. So much for hoping our opponent's not too aggro. You cannot be much more aggro than the Leyline of Resonance decks. Opponent. Cacophony's Gamma. We might just be dead on turn 2. Oh, there's white mana, though. Okay. Our fog should be really good against this, because not only does Eerie Interference stop combat damage, it stops all damage from creatures, so it stops the scamp damage. Double scamp. It stops the scamp damage too, though. We'll see how this one goes. I think the plan is, there are some cards I want to try in the deck, even though our first game went pretty well. We'll see how this one goes. If we win, we'll just keep going. If we lose, we might do a little updating, because I just really want to try. There's a few, I think the deck feels solid so far, but there's some cards I want to try adding that I think might be good. About it. Phoenix Chick's still in every once in a while I see a DMU card and I'm like, oh wait, that's still in standard. Found it. Getting in there. Are we dead? Monstrous Rage X2. Shouldn't they be putting on the scamps? Because then, okay, they're splitting it up. Man, if we had a fog here, it would be so... Like, if these unions were fogs, we might actually be winning. Not sure why they targeted Heartfire here. I feel like or maybe we're just dead anyway. I feel like if they put all the pumps on the scamps, we're definitely dead. Oh, all right. I guess it doesn't even matter. So much damage that we're just dead anyway, even through the life gain of Union. Well, that didn't feel super close. Authority of the Consoles feels like a good addition, though. Go down some of the slow stuff. Bring in the Get Lost to try to deal with either creatures or Leyline. And as much as I love Time Stop, I feel like this is perhaps not the best Time Stop matchup. Little bit slow. And Felton's Cane, probably not necessary. Yeah, let's go one stall for time running like that. Game number 1, we're not going to talk about that one anymore. All right, we get to play first. And we're not keeping a 6-lander. This will try. Time Stop definitely going to the bottom. I mean, this is about... Oh, man, you and your ley lines over there, opponent. Green Shadow. Always got that ley line. Heartfire Hero. I mean, at least we got a Fog this time. Do we just get lost the ley line? Kind of awkward because then they can map on the Heartfire Hero, but I think we gots to blow it up. It's just such a frightening card to have on the battlefield. Opponent Mountain. And yeah, that is the downside of Get Lost is the maps are kind of annoying, and they're especially good with Heartfire Hero since it triggers Valiance. Well, opponent heads us down to 17. Deduce. Well, land go. We really would like to deduce here, but we may need to... Oh, man. We need our land drops. So right now we're taking 6 down to 11. Well, let's see if they start casting pump spells. If they cast pump spells, then we're going to have to... All right, there's a Monstrous Rage. Can we get the last one? Come on. Come on. Felonious Rage. All in. All in. All right. Monstrous Rage. Sure. Well, how about an Eerie Interference? So temporarily we're fine. Oh, Crimeland. Well, Crimeland, yeah. Yeah, that was a very clutch Fog. Although I still feel like we might be dying. We know they have another pump spell. If they had a ley line, we'd definitely be dead here. Unfortunately, that Crimeland, the mana base, it's so weird. It is a really cool way to turn on max speed, which we need. The bad news is the tap lands are sometimes punishing. Like here, being able to Etherize probably wins us the game, or at least really gives us a shot. But getting that Crime Land, now, are we actually just dead? Oh, so many pump spells. Yeah, and that's gonna do it. Oh. All right, so let's do a little Turbo Fog rebuilding. So we've done some games with the deck. What did we learn about the original viewer-submitted Turbo Fog deck? And I gotta say, it actually worked kind of better than I expected. It looks really weird on paper, but we got to see the deck's ability to really just grind and grind and grind and grind and win in the late game. So I don't want to make like wholesale changes to the deck. I actually think the primary plan of the deck of like Aether Syphon, using the crime lands, I think it's really cute. I really like it. So instead, we're going to be working kind of around the edges with this one. So what are we trying to solve with this rebuild? And I think there's really 3 things that can be improved in this deck. So number 1, if you look at the best decks in Standard, a lot of them have some sort of free win nut draw. Think of like a Mouse deck or a Leyline of Resonance deck or even a Domain Overlords deck, where if you get your best draw, you just kind of like face roll your opponent and win super easily. This deck doesn't really have that. There's no free win mode. Even when it works well, we are grinding to like turn 30 and trying to desperately turn on our max speed, like somehow with a crime land so we can mill you a little bit and eventually win the game. There's no easy mode for this deck, but I think there's a way, without taking up too many card slots, that we can add a little bit more of an easy mode and a little bit more speed to our kill to increase our max speed in a non-max speed sort of way. So that's number 1. Number 2 is, I think we can maybe get to max speed a little bit more consistently. I want more ways to damage our opponent essentially during our turn, to be able to try to get to max speed faster, to power up our Aether Syphons, because even though we did manage to get to max speed eventually with a deck, we do not do it super quickly. The other thing I think could probably be improved is the sideboard. So here's my criticism of the sideboard. This is a realistic looking sideboard, but I feel like it doesn't take into account what our deck's trying to do. So if you look at this sideboard, I would say most of the cards in the sideboard are going to be good against aggro decks, right? Authority of the Consuls, Get Lost, Requisition Raid, Eliminate the Impossible. We have all these cards that are primarily going to be good against decks that are putting a bunch of creatures on the battlefield. But decks that are putting a bunch of creatures on the battlefield should already be our best matchups, right? Because we're playing all these Fogs and Aetherizes and Wraths and all this stuff. So we shouldn't really need to dedicate a ton of our sideboard to dealing with creature decks. On the other hand, if we run into like a control deck or a combo deck or something like that, we're gonna have a lot of cards that we take out. Like imagine we run into blue-white control, our Wraths are bad, our Aetherize bad, our Stall for Time is bad, our Eerie Interference is bad. There's a pretty long list of bad cards that we're gonna want to take out, but we don't really have things to bring in outside of maybe this Kaido. I guess maybe the Get Lost could come in. So I think we want to kind of gear the sideboard a little bit more for our bad matchups and trust that our Turbo Fog plan is going to be good enough for our good matchups. So here is Turbo Fog at 2.0. And as I mentioned before, no mass changes from the original deck, because I actually like the original deck, but we're basically trying to fix those three things we talked about. So what do we actually change in the deck? So number one, Jace Perfected Mind. This is the card I wanted in the deck most, because I feel like it is just absolutely perfect for this archetype. Its ultimate makes it one of the best mill cards in Standard. Our deck's planning on winning by milling, so I feel like Jace just speeds up our mill plan a ton, while also being another card advantage engine, which you already want in a Turbo Fog deck, because we want to just be drawing cards to find Fogs, to prevent the damage, to eventually win in the late game. So I feel like Jace does literally everything this deck wants, but it's even better than that, because Jace also gives us a little bit of that free win aspect we were talking about, because with Jace, some games we might just draw 2 or 3 of them, play them, ultimate them, mill your entire deck, and just accidentally get a free win. So I feel like Jace perfect for the deck, and to make room for Jace, we mostly trim like the Scrawling Crawler felt really bad, the Felden's Cane was never really necessary, trimmed like a Union, a Stall for Time, also added one more a land to the deck. I felt like 24 was a little bit light. The deck really gets punished if it misses land drops, so I feel like 25 probably necessary, even 26 could be good. The other big main deck change, Fountain Port in the mana base. So Fountain Port, alongside just being a really good card, it can make chump blockers, it can make treasures, it does a little bit of everything. This is our additional plan for turning on max speed. So now we can make a fish and attack you with the fish to try to get to max speed, to turn on our Aether Syphons, to mill you even faster. And then we just change up the sideboard a bit. And here, again, not like super huge changes, still want the removal in the sideboard, but the two big things we were lacking, more stuff for control. So we got some negates and disdainful strokes now, and then we were also just straight up lacking anything to deal with graveyards. And that's a little scary in a deck whose primary win con is going to be milling you. So if we're milling our opponent and we run into a Reanimator deck or something, we might be helping our opponent. So hopefully the Ghost Vacuums help there too. So anyway, that's Turbo Fog 2.0. Those are the changes to the deck. Let's jump back into some games and do some more Turbo Fogging. It is Turbo Fog 2.0 time. Let's see if our slight upgrades have any impact on this deck. This hand, actually seems pretty fine. Double Fog, Sunfall, Storm Chase's talent. Opponent doing some mulliganing. And gonna lead on a Hedge Maze. Well, there's an Aetherize. So many Fogs. Opponent, Ledge Portico. So opponent did mulligan pretty aggressively. I'm not convinced they had bad hands. They might have just been looking for Up the Beanstalk. Because if you mull to 5 and hit Up the Beanstalk, you have way more cards than if you keep 7 without Up the Beanstalk. Ooh, opponent says nice to our Storm Chaser's talent. Hello to you. Opponent, Ledge Portico, number 2. Mills it. Do we got the Up the... Ooh, all right, no Up the Beanstalk. Oh boy. All right, Jace. Well, one of the reasons that I think Jace is so important to this deck is I feel like Jace is kind of a free win card against Domain. I feel like if you put 4 Jaces in your deck, your odds of beating Domain are very high. Because the mill is so good and they draw so many cards that it's very difficult for them to beat 2 Jaces. Well, Jace number 1. I guess probably we should have done that pre-combat to trigger prowess, but we're just gonna mill and draw here. Start filling the graveyard. Hit an island. All right, we want to hit our land drop, so that's kind of big. What do we got? Scoutman, and so far they have done nothing. Oh, do we help them? Oh, we did, okay. Well, we filled our opponent's graveyard so they can analyze the pollen. They exile everything. Smart to keep us from drawing with our Jace and Overlord of the Mistmore as well. Thankfully, we got a few fogs for that. I don't think we're going to die to those two ones anytime soon. Although, they might be able to kill the Jace, which is awkward. I don't know, like, do we fog to protect the Jace? Is it even worth it? Let's get in and see what our opponent does. I will trade an Otter for a 2-1 flyer if our opponent... You know, all right, opponent not down with that deal. Take up Jace. If we draw with Jace here, we're just going to discard a hand size anyway, so it doesn't feel especially helpful. We could just... Yeah, let's just stall for time. Tap down the tokens, draw a card. And this is going to incentivize our opponent to add more to the board so they can attack us. And then hopefully we Aetherize or Sunfall everything. Just like sweeping away the 2 tokens, not that exciting. But if we can get an Overlord in there maybe, then it becomes much, much better. Temporary lockdown, sure. The funny thing is, because we have Storm Chaser's... Wow, they actually just wrath their tokens, too. Because we have Storm Chaser's Talent in this deck, people are very afraid of that card, and it leads to them doing suboptimal things like that. Like, our Storm Chaser's... we don't have this down. We're not doing any of the shenanigans that, like, the bounce decks do. So it actually isn't, like, that good for us, but people still, like, spend resources trying to answer it. Let's do a little deduction here. Deduce our way... Ooh, there's the Syphon. That is one of the cards we're looking for. Well, oh, yes. Yes, okay. And a crime land. So, start our engines and crime ya, speed up to 2. So we need to find a way to get to max speed, which right now I guess is more crime lands. Let's mill you a bunch. Now that we have the second Jace in hand, Jace draw 3 seems kind of powerful, or we might just Jace mill you again. We'll see how this turn plays out. The longer our opponent does nothing, the easier this becomes. Opponent unintends. Well, let's Syphon draw into a deduce. Overlord turns on. Well, play the planes. How do we want to do this? Let's play the Talent. Make an Otter, and I guess we just pass. We can fog. It's actually kind of funny. We kind of want our opponent to make some tokens, and then our incubate gets bigger with Sunfall. Found ain't gonna get in. We'll just take 6. 6 is fine. Still at 14. Well, there's an up the beanstalk. Our opponent's deck shouldn't have any direct damage, so we can afford to go kind of low and then just fog. Our opponent drawing cards also not the end of the world for us. Ooh, another Overlord of the Mistmore. Well, now we might just do a little Sunfalling, and that might be enough to end our opponent right there. Deduce, draw a card. And deduce, draw a card. And another Syphon. Well, let's crack the clue. Draw a card. More Sunfalls. Maybe I should have kept the clue for after we get max speed. Well, there's our Fountain Port. We can see if the Fountain Port... Yeah, let's chip in and see. Please, let us get to... Yeah, all right. Opponent doesn't want us to speed up. I think we still just Sunfall, though. Clear the board. And pass turn. Well, maybe the Fountain Port token. Maybe the Fountain Port token can get us there. Should we emote them back? Everybody grab a leg. Everybody grab a leg! The only emote we're allowed to use. Leyline Binding. Opponent. Ooh, wow. Not going for the Storm Chaser, Stanley. Okay. I mean, it does make sense. They have the fear of getting milled out, and rightly so, because we are kind of getting close. 22 cards. Well, let's fire up this Incubate. Get up to speed number 3, hopefully. We got another Syphon in hand anyway. Wow, Rides and draws a card. I think our opponent has correctly deduced that we actually care about getting to max speed. The bad news for our opponent is, if they don't have a random negate, okay, no random negate. Amelia for 15? And this is where, like, because of Up the Beanstalk, it's really tough for our opponent. They have 6 cards in their deck, and if they cast their best cards, they have to draw another card, and they just can't afford to do that. Well, play the Syphon. And go, and, well, we didn't really have to fog this game, but our Jace theory appears to be paying off. I don't know if it's fair to consider this a free win, because it did still take a while. It wasn't the fastest free win. That was kind of a free win. Like, 2 Jaces kind of just beat that deck by itself. Like, we didn't have to do a whole lot. Now we get to do some sideboarding. Bring in the negates to fight our opponent's negates. Bring in the disdainful strokes. Bring in the get loss. And then I kind of feel like Aetherize is medium in this matchup. Our opponent makes so much mana, they can just replay their board pretty easily. Maybe something like that. Yeah, maybe we just go down all the Union of the third pass. I don't know how relevant life gain really is. It's very matchup dependent. Against like mono red, it's great. Because one of the problems against mono red we run into, if we can stabilize, which, well, there's two problems against mono red style decks. One is sometimes we're just not fast enough to get run over. The other problem is sometimes we are fast enough and we stabilize with our fogs, but by the time we stabilize, we're so low they can just burn us out with like a burst lightning. That's where Union's at its best. This hand, for the matchup, I kind of like. I mean, we're not up against, this would be a very sketchy hand if we were playing against aggro, but against a domain deck, I feel like a bunch of card draw, a time stop, a siphon, a couple of sunfalls now, pretty reasonable. Do we just want to slam the siphon? Let's just leave up the counter. Well, let's do a little deducing. Lands, am I right? Indeed, opponent. I don't know how to respond to that. I guess we just don't. Let's play an island and pass turn. And opponent, well, all right, finds their land. Wait a minute. Did our opponent just miss a land drop, hit us with the lands of my right emo, top deck a surveil land, and mill a land? They just needed exactly one land, and now their life is good and they don't want lands anymore. That is kind of odd, but sure. Crimea was trying to hold on to the crime land to get the siphoner down, but I'd rather leave up the counter. Well, Overlord of the Mistmoors. Is that worth countering? I actually think it might be. We could deal with it with the Sunfalls. This just buys us a lot of time, and we kind of want more time to get things set up, get in Hitcha. Let's Jace. So after sideboarding, our opponent's gonna have, we're actually gonna Phyrexian mana here because we really need to hit a land. So if we whiff on Jace, we still have the option to crack a clue, and we can leave up negate. All right, well, I think we're gonna miss our land, but if we don't have to negate, we can get another shot at it end step. The lands at my right milling a land thing is the so funny. Temporary lock. Well, our precious clues. Temporary lockdown. Temporary lockdown's not even good against us. We draw a deduce. We lose our clue and our fish. Well, there's a fountain port. Now we're gonna start ticking up Jace, I think. Now that we actually have our land drop. And yeah, I mean, I think it's siphon time. Okay. How do we get to max speed? That is the question. So far, at least in this matchup, well, greatness at any cost, I guess. Settle down, opponent. Settle down. I got one of those too. You should see my other deck. Grab a leg. Oh, you don't got that one, do you? You don't got that one, do you? You don't got that one, do you? GG. GG for the emo game. That was not supposed to be. That was not an early GG. That was the emo battle game that we won, not the actual game. Hopefully our opponent took it that way. Siphon number 2. All right, mini emo war. I guess we just start discarding fogs. That's how you know you're a turbo fog deck. Once you start discarding the fogs to hand size. Actually, our opponent's just not doing anything other than emoting. Oh, well, let's siphon, draw guard. Is our plan for getting to max speed the friggin' fish? Is it the fish plan? Well, when we added Fountain Port to the deck, on top of just wanting it because it's a good card, the real reason was that we wanted more ways to get to max speed. Let's see if the max speed fish plan is a real thing. Can we actually achieve max speed with a fish? Opponent up the beanstalk. We could also just negate this. We can also just let it go. I think we let it go. I'm honestly not convinced our opponent drawing cards is bad for us. I think it plays into our Jace plan, into our Turbo Fog Mill plan. But I analyze the pollen. Gonna do a little tutoring. I mean, we're not gonna counter that either. I imagine they are just getting an Overlord. Wow! Oh, it keeps getting better. It keeps, oh, let's fish him. Let's see if this works. It keeps getting better. Lands at my right emo. Draw the surveil land. Use it to surveil away a land. And to analyze the pollen, exile it from the graveyard to get a land. This is the best day ever. What is our opponent doing over there? Overlord. All right. I mean, at this point, our opponent's land troubles should be over. They got the Overlord. They got Beanstalk going. We could just time stop them. You know what? We're going to time stop. The question is, do you time stop before or after the Beanstalk draw resolves? Yeah, we actually need to resolve this now. Negate the negate. Plus, we draw a lot of cards. We've been discarding the hand size, so I guess thinning the hand a little bit. Wait, is this fish gonna do it? Is this fish gonna do it? Okay, fish. Speed 3. Wait, are we gonna get all the way to max speed with a single fish token? Opponent, Overlord. Not creature mode. Do we even care about this? I don't think we even really care about this. Let's just draw, see what we hit. Wow, another Syphon. And now we will time stop you. Oh, okay, opponent has negate, but that's fine. That's fine. They draw their card, they get their Overlord. The bad news for our opponent is this fish is gonna do it. the little blue fish that could. Opponent, are we getting a land? Oh my god, they are. Okay, opponent. Another analyzes pollen for land. Oh no, are they gonna hit the fish? No. Oh, they're looking at the Siphons. Okay, that's fine. We have plenty of Siphons this game. Well, max speed achieved with a single fish. I mean, I guess this match is showing our upgrades working out. We got the free Jace win in game 1, and then game 2, Fountain Port Fish achieves max speed all by itself. And now life is very good because I wish we still had a counter in hand, but we're gonna be able to do some turbo milling here. Ooh, wow, and there's a counter in hand. Milia. So every card we draw mills for 4. Which might not sound that scary, but that actually means we should win the game in like 2 turns, roughly, with double Syphon. Opponent, Leyline Binding, gonna draw a card. Well, you can draw. They're definitely going after a Syphon. Yeah, sure. Sure. Whatever, opponent. We don't care about your silly bindings. We also have to get Lost in Hand so we can get it back. I think the negate's more valuable than spending here, especially since we have to get Lost in Hand. Yeah, snags a Syphon. Opponent's got what, 25 cards? 23 cards. Overlord of the Mistmore. I mean, that doesn't really matter. We have Aetherize, we got a Sunfall. So we're not gonna die to Overlord of the Mistmore. That I'm pretty confident in. And ooh, Zur. Okay, Zur is actually all right, let's get back our Syphon. We're just gonna blow up the Leyline Binding, get back the Syphon. Opponent can have their Zur. We don't really care. And then I think we just Sunfall, unless we can actually win this turn with 2 Siphons. Which I don't think we have enough card draw to literally win this turn. Milia. Oh yeah, putting stuff on top, not gonna be good against this deck. Draw a card, mill for 4. What do we got? 14 cards. 1, 2. So it's mill 4. Oh, we're 2 cards short. New plan. We're just barely short, so I think we have to just unfall. Oh, we can't win this turn, right? Am I missing? I don't think I'm miscounting. All right, nuke the board. Pass the turn. I mean, I guess we could have went for it, and if we hit, opponent has another Zur. That's actually kind of scary, although thankfully we still get a Fog. So if our opponent tries to turn all their stuff on and kill us, we still should be fine. Overlord and Leyline Binding. Keep going. All right, there we go. And Overlord. Opponent goes combat. Opponent attacks. I got bad news, friend. I got bad news. We're actually Turbo Fog, and you can't damage us. And now we definitely win next turn. And opponent GG's, and that went pretty well. That was a full Turbo Fog experience. We got the Fogs, we got the Jaces, we got Fish max speed. What more could you want? Seeing if Aether Syphon is actually the secret to making Turbo Fog work. Well, we'll keep the Jace. Jace is kind of busted about it. Jace was one of the cards I added to the deck because I felt like this shell was just too good for Jace to not play it. And Jace is so good against Domain. And Domain's a matchup that, like, is kind of medium in how much it cares about Fogs. Don't it? Getting in with the conscript. Looks like a skeleton deck, which means our Fogs should be good if we can find them. I just love that we get to play Aetherize in Standard, which is hilarious. Deduce into a Lonely Rayo. All right, how about a Fog? Storm Chaser's talent. Well, let's play the land. Let's get down the Syphon. A little bit scary. Can we live long enough to Sunfall? Probably. Found a land. Not the hasty. All right, Corpses of the Lost. That makes think we need a Fog desperately. We're taking 9. Down to 9. Okay, that's a Fog. That's a Fog. Okay, play their Rayo. Ping ya. This Fog is an incredibly huge draw. I guess we also need an untapped land to be able to cast the Sunfall. I mean, no one expects the Fog. Demo field. Forsaken Miner with haste. Yeah, it's all going to come down to drawing an untapped land here. That is going to be the game. Blood. Oh, man, if we draw an untapped land, it's so good. We could also draw another Fog, theoretically. Bounty gets in. Well, Fog ya. Fog you, skeletons. Bounty hits us for 0. Untapped land. Well, we're seeing the downside of our Arid Archway plan. So so the theory of this deck, which is very cute, and I like it, although we're seeing the clunkiness of it right now. But the theory is we play Aether Syphon. This is our big win con alongside Jace now, but Aether Syphon's our big win con. But for it to be a win con, we got to get to max speed. The problem is we don't have creatures. We're a Turbo Fog deck. So other than the Fountain Ports or like a Storm Chaser talent token, we don't really have a way to get to max speed. So our plan for max speed is Lonely Rayo to ping you to get up our speed, and then Arid Archway can bounce the Rayo, replay it to get up to speed. But then the Arid Archway, if this was just a Plains, we win this game. So little bit of a downside to that approach. Well, what are we taking out? We can go down to 3 steps ahead. We can go down the Jaces. Maybe go down like 1 time stop. Run it like that. We got it. I like that we have lands, but this hand doesn't do anything. All right, well, this will keep. This hand kind of does some things. I mean, at least it has an authority of the console, so we don't die instantly. Authority. Go. Well, let's find some card draw. Aetherize. Okay. Well, Archive, we're actually going to mill. We need card draw now. So for Turbo Fog to work, you need Fogs to not die, but you need card draw to keep drawing Fogs. We have the Fogs at the moment. We do not have the card draw. Opponent Razor. This is still in Standard? My God. My God, it feels like 5 years ago that this card was in Standard. And Deduce gotta go graveyard. Pass the turn. Tiny Bones. Well, we get to gain back a life. And passes. Sunfall would be nice. So Tiny Bones only has permanence, right? Non-land permanent, okay. Yeah, I mean, so that's kind of fine. We don't have any non-land permanents in our graveyard, so Tiny Bones doesn't do much. I don't really want to kill this Transmogrant. We really want to just, like, Sunfall it. Oh, another one. Well, okay. Aetherize is pretty cute with authority, because then our opponent has to replay everything. All right, there's a land. That's good. So play the land, pass the turn. Oh, do we Aetherize them? We might Aetherize them. We might do a little Aetherizing. Found it, land. You know what? We can take 7. We can take 7. That's fine. The longer we wait, the more value we get out of our Fogs. Found it, passes. I think this turn, I guess that would have been a reason to Fog last turn or Aetherize last turn. All right. Well, pick them up. Aetherize. No one expects Aetherize in Standard, that's for sure. Found it. Transmogrant back. We would like to just draw land. If we can just Sunfall to reset the board, then maybe we can get the Syphon down. Transmogrant, we gain a life. And, I mean, we made our opponent skip their turn, essentially. That was essentially 4-mana Time Walk, and we gained 3 life while they didn't even replay it. We'll play the land. Can we afford to take 6? Probably. Let's play the Syphon. Get our card advantage engine down. So we take 6 down to 5. They're mono black, though, so they shouldn't be able to, like, pump, I don't think. Opponent's gonna duress. Well, definitely taking the Sunfall. And passes. Well, play the Verge. We did kind of want that Sunfall. Well, now we got to keep chaining together Fogs. We do get to draw extra cards because of Syphon. Eerie Interference. So we take 0. Opponent plays, man, a Sunfall would have been so good. Bloodghast. Well, the pressure's on. Draw with Syphon. Okay, Storm Chaser's Talent. Oh, there's an Aetherize, though. Okay. That's good. Pray that our opponent does not draw Duress, which would make us die. That's the only downside to Aetherize. Another Fog we can cast, like, Upkeep if we want to, or in response to a Duress. But Aetherize we have to cast during combat. So if our opponent... Well, okay, that is exactly what we were scared of. Technically, we survive, because we can get lost, but our opponent's going to take the Aetherize. Go to combat. Attack. Well, I mean... So we need to kill the Transmogrant and draw with the Syphon. Fountain Port, that's not gonna save us. Down to 1. And gets back the Transmogrant. I mean, dead is dead. We either keep hitting stuff or we don't. Opponent passes. Plains, that's not gonna do it. Syphon, save us. And a land. All right, sure. Opponent Domain, our old friend Domain. Boy, a lot of Overlord decks floating around in Standard these days. That is for shizzle. Opponent Lush Portico. I mean, this hand's good if we draw another land. Land. We need a land. Opponent Overlord of the Hauntwoods. All right, land, please. You know what? I think we just go to game 2. Sometimes you don't draw any lands. The upside is scooping. I know there's going to be some people in the comments that are yelling, early scoop, what are you doing? Yes, there was definitely an early scoop in the sense that we scooped very early in the game. But I think our opponent's already at 5 mana. They had a very good draw into ramp. We're too far behind to catch up very easily. And I think there is sneaky power in our opponent not knowing that we're playing Aetherize, and that we're playing Fogs, and that we're playing, like, we have a very weird deck, and our opponent knowing how to sideboard against it is actually very, very valuable. So I feel like reducing the knowledge that our opponent has about what we're doing actually makes it worth scooping there. Sure, we probably had like a 5% chance to win or something if we just got super lucky, but I think we improve our odds of winning the match overall by scooping there and not letting our opponent know what's going on in our deck, if that makes sense. This hand... A lot of lands, but that's fine. Our problem last game was not having lands, and we have the Syphon, which is nice. And the Jace, which is our secret tech. Not so secret, I guess, but our best card against Domain. Now let's play Verge and pass the turn. You know what we really like would be another crime land would be good. Maybe the fish can do it again. Maybe we can fish our way to max speed. About it. Land and up the beanstalk. I'm still not sure if I mind our opponent having up the beanstalk. Let's get down our Syphon. I still think it might actually be good for us, as weird as that sounds. Up the beanstalk number 2. Okay, well, we're going to put the theory to the test. Is it actually good if our opponent has up the beanstalk in this matchup? It sounds insane to say we want our opponent to be drawing like 5 extra cards each turn. Oh god, that's double Jace. But we have all these Jaces in our deck that are really good at milling, and we kind of might want our opponent to be drawing 5 extra cards each turn. We're just going to fire this one off. So after sideboarding, Domain could have counters. I don't know if they saw enough of our deck in game 1 to bring in counters, but that does incentivize us to get down Jace while we can. I would assume that if our opponent's just going based on game 1, they probably think we're blue-white control would be... That's the guess I would make. If I saw us go land, scoop on turn 3, when we missed a land drop, I would guess you're blue-white control. Wow, opponent didn't play blue mana. Do we just Jace again? Like, we don't win the game, but if we just mill our opponent 15 more cards... Yeah, let's just wait. Let's just pick up the crime land. That is kind of awkward. Ooh, okay, another crime land. We can actually get to max speed. We're just gonna play it. We're gonna play it patiently here. I really want to work on getting towards max speed if we can help it. Wow, 4 mana leyline binding. Draw 2. Well, we will draw a card. It's the crime land. The nice thing about max speed is it still does keep tracking. We're not gonna have our Syphon, but it's still going to keep tracking even while the Syphon's gone. There's the blue mana and a Hauntwood. Our opponent probably has a negate. That seems likely. Maybe we should just play the Jace. I mean, we'll maneuver around it. We're just going to be super, super careful because I feel like we're going to get to a point where if we resolve this Jace, we probably just win, which I guess maybe is an argument for just playing it last turn. Ooh, time stop. Ooh, time stop. And we have the bounce land, so we can actually cast it. All right, Fountain Port. Our secret speed tech. Fish speed. I still can't believe that worked. Getting to max speed with a fish, opponent. Creature land hand. Well, if they're not going to do anything, I guess we just make a treasure token. We can actually get pretty far towards max speed with just these crime lands. Although first, I think we got a demo field to deal with the creature land. Well, pass the turn. If our opponent's not going to do anything, we're not going to do anything. I feel like each turn that goes by without anything scary added to the battlefield is a win for us because our opponent's going to mill out first. Well, now I guess we got to answer the Fountain Port. At least the creature land, I got to spend a bunch of mana to activate, and it gets fogged. Fountain Port, just too much value. Too many. We saw the power of the fish already in our deck. Opponent going to make a fish. Busted, busted, busted. We will snag a island. And I think we keep making treasures for now. Untap. And let's surveil. At some point we need to play these Lonely Arayos and start working on max speed. But we don't really have anything to go with it yet anyway. We don't have a Syphon at the moment. So I guess we're not in the biggest rush. Although it would be nice that when we draw a Syphon that we already have max speed. Opponent surveils to the top and gonna get in with the fish. The fish has been showing out this video for us and for our opponents. What a good game for the fish. Opponent passing. Well, let's deduce and draw a card. Well, there's a fog. Yeah, let's make a fish. Make a fish. Start working on some speed. Passes. All right. Well, let's play the Lonely Arayo. Speed up to 2. At some point, we're gonna have to cast this time stop. Exactly when, I'm not sure. I would bet money that they have a negate in hand. I just feel like the way they've left up mana this game, I feel like it's likely that they have a negate in hand, but I'm not gonna get in. I think we just chump sack draw this turn. I mean, our opponent has so much mana that giving them even more mana with the Overlord, I don't think it really matters. That just means they cast more cards that triggers their beanstalks and mills them out faster. So I think, we'll let them have all the cards and all the mana. What could possibly go wrong? Overlord of the Mizmor. I mean, what can go wrong is if they make enough mana and have enough cards, they will be able to stop a fog or two with a counter and maybe kill us. That's the risk. Oh boy, I don't really want to time stop now. If we're gonna do that, it was gonna be so much better earlier. Opponent Overlord of the Mizmor. Well, let's crack our clue. Wouldn't mind a Sunfall. Sunfall would be a sweet draw. Well, actually, I don't mind negate either. One way we can theoretically win this is just forcing through the Jace with the negate at some point. I don't think we're... Okay. Ask and you shall receive. That is a Sunfall off the top. Well, Lonely Arayo. Found it. Down to 16, speed up to 3, Sunfall. And I think we will spend our negate if our opponent counters here. Opponent negates. Actually, you know what? We got a fog. That's fine. The real reward is the Jace. All we gotta do to win this game is wait a little longer, stay alive in Jace. I think the negate is staying, Leyline Binding, draw 2, hit a treasure? I guess maybe they're setting up a Zur? Seems like a bad Leyline Binding, but I guess if you're drawing 2 cards, how bad can it possibly be? But I feel like yeah, let's upkeep this before our opponent draws. I don't feel like Domain typically plays that many counters. I feel like 1 or 2 in the sideboard. Well, damage prevented. Fog, yeah. Opponent can still get a land with their Overlord. But I think we want to save the negate to force through the Jace, but we want to wait until... Wow, there's Zert. We kind of want to wait until our opponent actually just straight up dies. Especially with them having this big of a board. They're only going to need 1 turn of attacking to kill us. Assuming we can't fog them, which, I mean, that's our job, right? Is to make sure that attack never happens because we just fog them. Opponent gets in, makes a land. We take 0. Overlord taken down. Well, that's another fog. That is not the worst. Although, it is unfortunate that we're stalled out in 3rd gear. We almost... Yeah, this is where the fish are not going to get us to max speed, I don't think. Too many bodies. Well, that's... Meticulous Archive. I have gained any respect for Storm Chaser's talent in this deck, because this deck plays Storm Chaser's talent way differently than any other deck I've played. It plays it for, like, we're going to mill it here because we don't actually have a good enough graveyard. But the fact that it's playing it primarily is, like, this weird control card to get things back from the graveyard, to get the fogs back mostly. So different than what you see in, like, the bounce decks or the otters decks. Using it completely differently, and it's still been really, really solid about it. So if Storm Chaser Town's actually busted without actually this towning, that's actually another sign of the power of that card. Pound it, gonna turn on the Overlord. You know, our opponent's thinking, oh, I'm gonna get him this time. I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna make all this power. I'm gonna attack. Oh, I'm gonna fire my creature land. Look at that. I have built a lethal board. And time stop. I'm sorry about it. Actually, no, I'm not even a little sorry. And they don't even know we got another fog in hand. Well, let's play another Meticulous Archive. Yeah, we'll keep another fog. We can do this all day. I mean, they have 15 cards. We have a negate. They'd have to have 2 counters. If we're not going to go for Jace here, when do we realistically go for Jace? Like, the problem is if they do have 2 counters, then we probably die. Because we go Jace, then we counter. They counter. Do we have mana? I think we just gotta go for it. We just gotta go for it, right? We just gotta go for it. It literally wins the game if it resolves and we have negate back up. How much more can we ask for? Like, how much more can we realistically ask for? Jace, you got a negate. No, okay. Well, all that thinking and talking for nothing. I guess the lesson is just slam the Jace, because it's always gonna work out 100% of the time. That's an empty library, and your go. Well, we fogged him. And we're just gonna run it back on to game number 3. Fog is so frustrating to play against. It is, like, hilariously frustrating to play against, just because, like, in standard, like, in Commander, you might expect it a little bit. Like, if someone's alpha striking and the other opponent has, like, a man up, you might think in the back of your head, at least in the Commander Clash meta, you're gonna think, yeah, Richard might have a fog. That is a possibility. Like, that's a real thing. In standard, no one but us plays fogs. We're the only fog believers out there. So literally 0% of opponents are going to expect a fog in game 1 out of this deck. Yeah, that seems like a reasonable hand. Kind of wish we had slightly more colored mana, but can't be too big. The opponent mills away land. Well, Meticulous Archive. And, wow, all right, well, sometimes you just draw all the Jaces. Opponent up the beanstalk. Well, let's play the plains. Pass the turn. Opponent. More surveillance. It is nice that normally if I'm playing a deck and Domain plays up the beanstalk on turn 2, I'm like, oh no, we're dead. Like, unless we can get that off the battlefield, it's going to beat us. And this deck, I'm kind of like, yeah, okay. Like, yeah, maybe that's actually good for us. please, sir, may I have another? Clunky mana. That is one thing I'll say about this deck, is the mana, like, it's functional, but sometimes it's kind of clunky. Like right here, we really want to play this Aether Syphon, but we don't have double blue. Our other lands don't even make blue, so if we play like a Demolition Field, we can't even play Syphon next turn, but we really want to hold the Crime Land to trigger the Syphon, and then we just have to play the Syphon anyway. I mean, the good news is we have 2 Jaces in hand, and with 2 Jaces in hand, we're really playing a sub-game called Can We Resolve 2 Jaces? Because if we do that, our odds of winning is incredibly high. Opponent going to analyze the pollen to find, I would guess, an island for the negate they undoubtedly have in hand. Should we just slam a early Jace? Is it an early Jace slam turn? Yeah, let's untap. We're not going to crack the clue because we don't want to discard the hand size. Oh boy, is Jace too good to pass up? Jace might be. Jace is just too good to pass up. As cool as Syphon is, Jace with our opponent not having blue mana just to mill the first 15 is so nice. The other thing this does, the first Jace isn't going to win us the game, obviously, but what the first Jace does is it makes it so when we get to the second Jace, if maybe we can't win the game right away, we should be able to draw a 3 with it, at least once, maybe twice, and that's a lot of card advantage. Like, that can win the game in a different way, just drawing 6 extra cards out of nowhere. And Nisa. Okay, well, I'm glad we got these get lost. Found it, Nisa. So my impulse is to just kill the Nissa, but this is a window we could play a second Jace and know it's going to resolve and mill 15 more cards. That's not going to win us the game immediately, but if we mill 30 with a Beanstalk out, our opponent might not have enough resources, but then the Nissa is going to make another, they're going to make a 5/5. Yeah, I think we got to kill the Nissa, as bad as that feels. Kill the Nissa, pick up the Demolition Field, and ship the turn. Opponent. What do we got, opponent? Nissa. And up the Beanstalk trigger, sure. Nissa, a little bit bigger than the last one. Oh, wait, is this a... Oh, no, opponent went to combat. Okay, well, that's a freebie. Yes, we will get Lost Drink. Wow, opponent, 6 mana, 2 life to do literally nothing. Yeah, they probably should have just activated that. Well, now I guess the coast is clear again for Jace. How close does this get us to winning? Like, how close are we now? Milia. And opponent, almost dead. 11 cards. Can they beat us with 11 cards is the question. Opponent gets and hits us through at least 2 fogs. And we got a Syphon. All right. Well, Overlord of the Mistmoors is a pretty good one. That is a card that can... We only are at 12. So, ooh, Sunfall. My God, that's a draw. So opponent might have a chance. I think the Sunfall probably is really going to hurt that chance. And this is where we see the up the Beanstalk downside of... I don't really want to draw a card. I don't think our opponent wants to draw extra cards with up the Beanstalk, but they're kind of stuck with it. 9 cards in their deck. What do they have left in there? Probably a Zur. There should be 1 Zur left, I think. Although they don't have that many enchantments on the battlefield. Opponent passes. So we get back at, Deduce, Get Lost, Sunfall. Yeah, let's just, we're not even going to attack. We'll stay on defense. We're not winning with damage this game. There's no way. I think we just level up. Level up and snag, Get Lost is another line of defense. I mean, we're just turbo fogging. We're just turbo fogging, waiting for the clock to run out on our opponent's library. Leyline Binding, sure, and draws a card. What a drawback. Having to draw a card when you Leyline Binding, not very good. Not very good. Poor opponent. Generating card advantage at the least opportune time. Opponent plays a land. Okay, with 7 cards in the deck, second up the Beanstalk. Maybe our opponent has reached the I'm just gonna die doing what I love stage of the game, which is apparently casting up the Beanstalks with 7 cards in their deck. Oh, okay. That makes more sense. So opponent wants enchantments on the battlefield for Zur, and they're just like, I need enchantments no matter how they come. Yeah, let's just kill this Zur, I think. Trigger prowess. More importantly, make her Otter a 2/2. Can you beat that? Deck full of Overlords. Opponent gets a 6/6 Leyline Binding. We get to jump it. I'm mostly, so many Siphons. I'm mostly just worried about a counter. That would be the one way I could see losing theoretically, is some combination of like this Leyline Binding and counters to stop our fogs. But I think we're safe this turn, because I don't think our opponent can get lethal. They'd have to get really lucky. They'd have to have like Zur to turn on the Beanstalks and double crack maps to actually, okay. Yeah, another Leyline Binding there would have been a little scary. And we just still have a fog for all this. This is all if our opponent has a way to counter our fog. Like, I don't even think we need a fog now. Let's just try to jump with our incubate, I guess. Save the fogs for when they're more important. Get Lost, sure. Well, we'll take 6. And another Overlord, draw 2. Opponent 4 cards, opponent 3 cards. So our opponent has like 1 turn probably to kill us. 1 turn if they trigger their Beanstalks again. Well, all right. I mean, play the land, do a little surveilling, and then I think we just, we'll keep Aetherize. Yeah, I think it's safest just to leave up double fog here, because our opponent's so close to being dead. Upkeep. And opponent lets it resolve. Opponent 2 cards in their deck, plays a land. Opponent's thing, I know how it feels. I've been on the other sir side of the Turbo Fog matchup, and you know the thing, if I can just get 1 attack, is this the turn where they finally don't have a GD fog, please. But no, it's not. We still have Aether Eyes and an actual fog, and even an exercise, which I guess we can work out this ley line binding a little bit. And we get back our Storm Chaser's talent. Pass the turn. That means we're not just dead. We're not just dead. Opponent one. Wow. Zer. One card in the deck. Oh no. Is there a way we lose here? So they can fire up the Overlord. They can fire up 2 Beanstalks. But they need to be able to stop the fog. We only have 1 fog. They need to be able to stop the fog. Ride Zen to kill up to kill themselves. Opponent of the Beanstalk draws 2, 1 card in the deck, and well, opponent might have done that a little bit to themselves, but we'll take it. We fogged them. Sweet. So what do we learn this week about Turbo Fog in Standard? And I don't know what to make of this deck. We had some really cool games with the deck, and I love the idea of this deck, but record-wise, kind of questionable. So if we pull up our untap.gg, we'll see original build, the straight-up viewer-submitted build. We went 1 and 2, 33% win rate, small sample size, kind of a medium record. So we're like, all right, we're going to update this deck. Let's update it. Let's add the Jaces. Let's update the fountain boards. Let's add some cards to the sideboard. So we did the updates, played more games, and won 31% of the time across 11 matches. So almost exactly the same win rate. So I don't know if we actually improved the deck all that much or not. I think this is a deck that's very matchup dependent. If we're so good against opponents who are like doing domain strategies and decks like that, on the other hand, we really struggled against discard decks. Discard decks were like a nightmare. And maybe the most disappointing aspect of the deck is you would think that it'd be really good against aggro, but in practice, aggro was kind of a sketchy matchup. We saw multiple losses in the video to aggro because the thing is, our fogs, even though they're powerful, our Aetherizes, our Eerie Interference, our Time Stops, they're also kind of slow. So against a good draw against Mono Red, or we saw the Skeletons deck, sometimes they can just run us over before we get our fog plan set up, and they pressure so much that if we miss 1 turn relatively early in the game of fogging, we can just die on the spot. So I'm not actually sure aggro is a good matchup, which kind of blows my mind, because when I think of Turbo Fog, I think aggro should be our best matchup, and then control should be our worst matchup. But you could argue that it's kind of the opposite, and aggro is actually a bad matchup, but then the domain deck, which I guess isn't exactly control, but it's more of a slower controlling style deck, is actually one of our best matchups. So I will say with our updates, I do think Jace just has to be in the deck. I think Jace is so good. Even though our win rate was about the same with either build of the deck, I will say Jace is just so perfect for the deck that I think it's worth it. I also like Fountain Port. I also think 25 lands, probably at least 25 lands has got to be correct, because one of the easiest ways to lose with this deck is to miss a land drop. And one of the biggest challenges of the deck, and I'm still not sure how I feel about this, is definitely the mana base. And we need this really weird, like, Arid Archway, Lonely Arrayo mana base to turn on our Aether Syphon to get to max speed, which is our, like, main win con. But we also saw some really punishing draws where, like, we miss our colorless lands, or we draw a bounce land when we really need an untap land to cast a fog to stay alive. So there is a cost to the mana base, but I love how it actually managed to turn on max speed with having essentially 0 creatures in the deck. I will also say, Time Stop is just such a fun card. I don't even know if it's a good card anymore, but it is just so funny and gets people by surprise. And that's what I love the most about this deck. It's just like all these weird cards that no one else plays, and it really just wrecks people who don't see it coming, and you can pick up some hilarious wins. Also, Storm Chaser's talent. This is probably not a surprise, but this deck really confirmed to me how good this card is, because we know it's good if you're bouncing it with this sound ain't big enough or whatever. We know that in that context it's good, but in this context, which is like a really slow deck that doesn't care about the 1/1 token hardly at all, and is just mostly using it to get back spells from the graveyard, it was still really good in that context. So I think Storm Chaser's talent just kind of busted. The one last thing I wanted to say about the deck is I mentioned that this started as a viewer deck from Casey Has the Candy, and Casey actually sent me their stats with the deck and their record playing their version of the deck, which was the original version that we played. I don't know, they've been updating as they go along, so maybe it's been updated since then. But with their version of the deck, they are 30 and 12 for a 71% win rate, and went all the way from Platinum up to the bottom of Mythic with the deck, which is kind of ridiculous. So even though we only won around 33% of the time, we know that someone actually like has straight up proof that they're killing it with this deck. So I don't know what to make of that. I don't know if it's like an MMR thing or something. I really don't know, but regardless, Casey has the candy, absolutely crushing it with the deck. So anyway, that's Turbo Fog. That's been our deck for today. I think overall, I gotta say, my experience with the deck, more of a meme than a dream. Although seeing those stats from Casey makes me think, I don't know what to make of it, because that's a big sample size and a good win rate. So let me know what you think about the deck. Any other ideas of how we can get max speed in an almost creature-free deck? Any suggestions? Let me know in the comments. Thanks again to Casey has the candy for sending in the deck. And if you ever want to send in a deck to maybe show up on the YouTube, maybe show up in the stream, you can always email them to me, saffronolive@mtggoldfish.com, or just hit me up on Twitter or Blue Sky at saffronolive. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed our turbo fogging, and I will talk to you soon.